This episode is a must. So it's that time of year again, right? We're gearing up for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's class of 2026. And as per usual, the Rock Hall is going to snub some of the best rock bands of all time and put in, artists from other genres, not rock and roll. I mean, it's called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But, it's what they do. So today, I want to make the case for some extremely talented musicians who deserve to get in and see if we can create a groundswell for some of the most deserving bands and artists of all time. I'm counting down my top 8 acts who the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame consistently ignored and neglected for decades. I want to give them some love with this video. At the end of the video, I've got an important call to action that I really need your help with so we can get the number one band that I've chosen into the Hall of Fame. Do you know what band it is? Let's see. Real quick, just in case you're not aware of the rules though, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducts its members with a nominating committee, which is comprised, I guess, of 40 music industry professionals. These are the ones pulling the strings. The committee is comprised of academics and journalists and, those types of people, also previous Rock Hall inductees. After they decide who should be considered and who gets snubbed, ballots are sent over to 1,200 music historians and industry professionals, also artists, and they select each year's induction class. Additionally, the Rock Hall has a fan vote element, which comprises a really small percentage of the final tally, though. To be nominated, artists, they have to go through a 25-year waiting period from the time they release their first commercial recording. The Rock Hall then considers each potential inductee's impact on music industry and popular culture, as well as their lasting influence. And factors also include chart performance a lot of times and critical acclaim and cultural significance. So each year, around 15 to 20 artists are nominated. However, being nominated for the Rock Hall one year doesn't guarantee nomination in the future at all. Last year's performer nominees included the Black Crowes, Mariah Carey, Billy Idol, Joy Division / New Order, Mana, Oasis, and Fish, none of whom were inducted. The following nominees were inducted: Bad Company, finally, Chubby Checker, Cyndi Lauper, Joe Cocker, Outkast, Soundgarden, and the White Stripes. But you know what? Let's talk about who isn't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but absolutely should be. Starting things off at number 8, I've got to go with Inxs. But some of us don't know why. Now, Inxs hailed from Perth, Australia, and they weren't just big for an Aussie band. They were one of the biggest bands on the planet, let's be clear. While many bands struggle to translate regional success to the world stage, Inxs conquered every populated continent. Their masterpiece Kick sold over 14 million copies. It's a once-in-a-lifetime LP, right? It was released in '87. It had 6 top 40 singles on the Billboard Hot 100, including the top 10's New Sensation, Never Tear Us Apart, Devil Inside, and Need You Tonight. That one went to number 1. Could never, ever tear us apart. The devil inside, every single one of us, the devil inside. I need you tonight. In addition to Kick, though, Inxs scored 4 more platinum and multi-platinum albums: The Swing in '84, Listen Like Thieves in '85, X in '90, and Welcome to Wherever You Are in '92. And the catalog is stacked with iconic tracks from Don't Change in 1982 to Michael Hutchence' Last Hurrah with Elegantly Wasted in '97, a very underrated album. Speaking of Michael Hutchence, every legendary Hall of Fame act requires a focal point of undeniable charisma, and Michael Hutchence had more than anybody. He was a true rock god. In many ways, he was a second coming of the Doors frontman Mr. Mojo Rising Jim Morrison. The man was Morrison's legitimate successor from stage presence to chaotic lifestyle. Hutchence's signature vocal range seamlessly transitioned from a sultry low-register purr into a gritty, soulful wail. He blended the dangerous charisma of a rock frontman with the rhythmic precision of a funk singer. Tragically, Michael Hutchence took his own life on November 22nd, 1997, at the age of 37. Man, we'll never forget him. And of course, there are people that say that it was an accident. Who knows? But what I do know is Michael Hutchence is one of a kind. I'm lonely. Behind Michael Hutchence's undeniable magnetism, Inxs was powered by the innovative songwriting of Andrew Ferris, who I've had a chance to interview, an awesome guy. He's got an ability to blend synth pop textures with funky guitar riffs, and it created the band's distinctive contemporary sound for sure. The rhythm section was anchored by John Ferris, whom Nile Rodgers praised as one of the best drummers he's ever worked with. High praise there. And of course, bassist Gary Yerbeers. Complementing this foundation were Tim Ferriss's iconic clean tone guitar hooks and Kirk Pengelly's dual threat talent on both rhythm guitar and incredible saxophone player. Together, these 6 musicians functioned as a tight, versatile unit that could pivot from gritty pub rock to polished global pop like that. The criteria for Hall of Fame, or influence and innovation and longevity, Inxs absolutely checks every box. Now, Inxs released their first album in 1980. This means they've been eligible for induction since 2005. And that was 21 years ago. But get this, they've never been nominated. Bullshit. I'm going to make a bold claim here. If Michael Hutchence hadn't passed away, I will tell you, I think Inxs would be the biggest Renaissance band right now. They'd have Oasis-type crowds. They'd be selling out stadiums everywhere off the strength of those huge hits. I'm telling you. Don't change a thing for me. I just realized that my top 8 here really are the bands that have either never been nominated or they've been nominated for many, many years. So there are a couple that I've left out because they've only been eligible for a little bit of time. Coming in at number 7, up the irons, I've got Iron Maiden. I'm going to try not to get frustrated here. How in the hell are they not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame already? I mean, they've been eligible like Inxs since 2005. They're heavy metal legends, and they're still MIA for rock's so-called highest honor. And for no good reason. Iron Maiden released their first EP in 1979 and became known for their dual guitar work, their rangy vocals, and legendary performances in concert. They're one of the highest selling artists of all time, sold over 90 million records worldwide. They've influenced countless artists like Metallica, and Avenged Sevenfold, and Slayer. Despite their massive success, though, the Rock Hall has never recognized them. Maiden has been nominated more than once, but they've never been inducted. And that being said, though, Iron Maiden they've had enough of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They don't even want in at this point. In fact, get this, they've asked the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to leave them the hell alone. Following their 2023 nomination, reports surfaced that the band's team requested the Hall of Fame stop nominating them altogether. Both founding bassist Steve Harris and vocalist Bruce Dickinson have expressed little interest in the institution. And that's kind of how a lot of people feel at this point. Harris has called out the selection process by the Rock Hall's panel of judges as questionable at best. And of course, fans can vote, right? But let's be clear, our vote carries very little weight, especially compared to the judge and jury here. Bad Company's drummer Simon Kirk actually revealed that he had a conversation on the subject with friend and Maiden drummer Nick McBrain. After Nick congratulated Simon for Bad Company's nomination, he told him that the Iron Maiden team had asked the Rock Hall to forget about him. Said Kirk, quoting McBrain, "Our team wrote to the Hall of Fame and said, 'Stop nominating us, damn it, get lost.'" And, can you blame them? Even though they deserve recognition, Iron Maiden, they don't need the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's validation. They built a legacy on their own terms, and they're perfectly happy to keep it that way. And I don't think Eddie would want to be in the Hall of Fame. All right, coming in at number 6, I got to go with somebody who's going to be a controversial pick here, because some will say he's not a rocker. But I'm going to go with Phil Collins. To me, it's a no-brainer. If you're going to put in icon/hitmakers like Janet Jackson, George Michael, and Madonna, Phil absolutely should be in. Now, to be fair, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame did induct Phil Collins in 2010 as a member of Genesis. Considering that Genesis formed in 1967 and Collins joined up in 1970, it's already decades overdue. I'm talking about Phil Collins as a solo artist, though. Now, Phil became eligible for solo induction clear back in 2006, a full 25 years after Face Value dropped in 81. But since then, he's been passed over year after year. He's never even been nominated. He's one of the most prominent double induction snubs ever, and his exclusion as a solo artist is definitely one of the Hall's most glaring oversights. So there's been a rumor going around for years that original Rock and Roll Hall of Fame bad guy and founder of it, and Rolling Stone magazine's crotchety old villain, Jan Wenner, he said that it would be a cold day in hell before Phil Collins would ever get in the Hall of Fame. During the 80s, Phil Collins achieved more U.S. top 40 hits than any other musician, including Michael Jackson. He had 7 #1 singles, from Against All Odds, Take a Look at Me Now to Another Day in Paradise. Never mind that he was the most consistent hit maker. Again, he released 27 top 40 singles. If you include his hits with Genesis, he's like in the same category as the Beatles and Elvis and the Bee Gees. Collins was a one-man hit factory. He belongs to an elite 100 million club of only 3 artists in history, alongside Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, who've sold over 100 million records both as a band member and as a solo artist. In fact, both with Genesis and in his solo career, those numbers are over 150 million each. In the 80s, Phil had 4 straight multi-platinum albums with No Jacket Required, taking home $25 million and change around the world. He was the decade's most pervasive musical force and a kick-ass drummer to boot. As a drummer, his technical proficiency is legendary. But as a producer, he fundamentally changed the texture of recorded music. I mean, that gated reverb sound defined an entire era of production. Also, how many times it's been sampled by hip-hop artists. Phil Collins produced albums for ABBA's Frida, Philip Bailey of Earth, Wind & Fire, Eric Clapton, and David Crosby, and collaborated with many others. On all these merits, Collins isn't just a mere candidate. He is a titan. He is a warrior. Phil Collins was omnipresent in a way few artists have ever matched. He's also famously the only person who had performed at both Live Aid venues, Wembley in London and JFK Stadium in Philadelphia, on the very same day, crossing the Atlantic via Concorde. It was a testament to his status as the hardest working man in show business at that time, a man who played drums for everyone from Eric Clapton to Robert Plant while maintaining an unrelenting solo career. Phil Collins deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, period. Period. All right, in at number 5, I've got Kansas, a band that despite being eligible since 1999 has never even been nominated. Kansas released their first album in 1974, and the rock-solid case for their induction begins with their status as the definitive architects of American progressive rock. While 70s prog was dominated by British titans like Yes and Pink Floyd and Genesis, Kansas performed a singular feat. They successfully grafted the symphonic complexity of European art rock onto the rugged blues-based grit of the American heartland. That's for sure. The Rock Hall has a nasty habit of overlooking the contributions of prog rock bands, and it's a mistake because Kansas showed that prog rock didn't have to be precious or overly academic to be technically brilliant. Their arrangements were a masterclass in shifting time signatures and polyphonic harmonies. Yet they had a working-class urgency that allowed them to transition seamlessly from a violin-heavy epic-like Song for America to the hard-driving riffs of Carry On Wayward Son. Working-class prog rock. Is that a term? I want to coin it. It's pretty good because it describes Kansas.
So much to see, so rich in mercy life, no more.
Let's talk about Carry On Wayward Son. It has the greatest opening vocals ever. And there's not a close second. There's just not. And for years, it was the most played track on classic rock radio across the United States. It might even be there again. Pair that with Dust in the Wind, one of the most recognizable acoustic ballads in history, and these two songs are as good as anyone ever put out. They might be the best anthem ballad combo ever.
Carry sun. There'll be peace when
all they are is dust in the wind.
Few complex bands have ever achieved the sheer commercial saturation Kansas enjoyed at their peak as well. Between 76 and 78, the band was a juggernaut. Their breakthrough album, Left Overture, is certified 5 times platinum, and the successor, Point of No Return, is 4 times platinum. These albums, they're cultural landmarks, and unlike many of their contemporaries, Kansas, they've experienced a massive resurgence through modern media. Carry On Wayward Son became the unofficial anthem for the long-running TV series, Supernatural, introducing their music to a global Gen Z audience, and they loved every second of it.
Lay your weary head to rest.
This digital era staying power is reflected in their streaming numbers as well. Dust in the Wind and Carry On Wayward Son collectively boast over 1 billion streams, all on the strength of the most underrated singer of the 70s. I'm talking about the exceptional Steve Walsh. Oh, his voice is solid gold. Hall of Fame is intended to honor musical excellence, and Kansas's lineup featured some of the era's most formidable players, from the dual guitar attack of Kerry Livgren and Rich Williams to the powerhouse drumming of Phil Ehart. They were a musician's band for sure that refused to simplify their sound for the charts. Inducting Kansas would finally recognize the vital link they provided between the avant-garde and the mainstream, proving that rock music can be both intellectually demanding, yet universally accessible, and that describes Kansas to a T. After being eligible for 27 years, it's time to put Kansas in.
don't you cry no more.
All right, so number 4, I've got Toto, and this one blows my mind. Considering how influential and pervasive the members of this band have been, not to mention their sheer talent, consider for a moment some of these facts. Individually and collectively, the members of Toto have contributed to roughly 5,000 albums that have collectively sold over 500 million records. That's not an exaggeration. Go check out David Page's official page. Go to his discography section. From 1973 to 2025, he has thousands of credits on various albums from composer to lyricist to writer to keyboards and then some. And go to Steve Lukather's. It's the same situation. Toto was famously the backbone of Michael Jackson's Thriller, the best-selling album ever, and there's not a close second there. Yet Steve Porcaro writing Human Nature and Steve Lukather providing the iconic guitar work for Beat It and the former.
Tell him that it's human nature. Why?
And if you look at the list of bands and musicians who have been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, many of them have benefited from Toto. Absolutely. I mean, there's Paul McCartney, there's George Harrison, there's Ringo Starr, Michael Jackson, Elton John, Alice Cooper, Bruce Springsteen, Jackson Browne, Pink Floyd, Bee Gees, Chicago, Van Halen, Lionel Richie, Daryl Hall and John Oates, Santana, and it just keeps going. If the Hall of Fame honors those who shaped the history of rock, why the hell hasn't Toto been invited to this party? It's a sham. It actually makes me furious. And as a standalone unit, Toto's commercial and critical dominance is equally undeniable. 3 multi-platinum albums, 10 top 40 singles, and in 1983, Toto achieved a nearly unprecedented sweep at the Grammys, winning 6 trophies for Toto 4, including Record of the Year for Rosanna and Album of the Year. The LP has since sold 6 million copies worldwide and featured the two-headed monster of Rosanna in Africa, a literal 1-2 punch, with Africa going to number 1 on the Hot 100 and Rosanna going to number 2, and it should have been a number 1 hit.
Rosanna, Rosanna, I guess the rain's down in Africa.
And never mind that Africa has become one of the biggest songs ever, surpassing 2.4 billion streams on Spotify just in the last few years, with billions more across other platforms. Africa has been a massive pop culture staple for decades, covered by a slew of artists and bands.
I guess the rain's down in Africa.
So what is the problem here? Well, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is straight biased against what they call corporate rock. I mean, it took forever for them to induct Journey and then Foreigner, and they should have been in long ago. Toto is unfortunately in a similar situation. According to Lukather, though, he says, they hate our guts. I'm going to quote him exactly here. This is funny. He says, it's not just the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that hates our guts, but all the gatekeepers in the industry. For example, Rolling Stone undermines our work, especially Africa. Some other ass clown wrote some horrible shit about Africa, a song that was written in 1981, by the way, and is still everywhere. It's like herpes. It comes back when you least expect it. But at the same time, it's a golden nugget. The Hall's distaste for Africa has continually kept Toto at bay.
Hurry, boy, she's waiting there for you.
Lukather continues to say, it's like they think we're only worth one song. And it's like, dude, we got a lot of material. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, come on. Do the right thing, put Toto in. They deserve to be in long ago. I'm excited for this top three. All right, at number 3, I'm going to split the difference between Joy Division and the Smiths, my favorite band of all time. Here's why, though. This goes back to a quote that Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins made on his show, The Magnificent Others, and also when he appeared on Trackstar recently. Corgan said, I've argued for a good 20 years that probably outside of the Beatles, Joy Division is the most influential rock band of the 20th century. They crystallized post-punk in a way that no band ever did, and they became the template for so many bands that followed. So I was thinking about that, and I completely agree with what he's saying, except for one thing. I believe it should also include the Smiths. They've influenced every single indie rock band since 1983, and they've been the blueprint for everyone from Radiohead to Oasis since. You know, since the Beatles are obviously already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, for this segment I'm making the case for both Joy Division and the Smiths. I'm cheating a little bit here. So beginning with Joy Division, they were actually on the most recent ballot for the class of 2025. I think they've been nominated a couple times. They weren't inducted. Now, Joy Division first became eligible for induction clear back in 2003. And don't even get me started on the joint Joy Division / New Order nomination. Both bands deserve to get in on their very own, not as a tandem. They're totally different bands, especially in later on. Joy Division, though, was one of the original architects of the alternative landscape, for sure. While punk rock provided the explosive energy to tear down the old guard, Joy Division was the first band to walk through the ashes and realize that the most profound rock music didn't have to be loud or fast. It had to be psychological. In their brief 4-year career and only 2 studio albums, Unknown Pleasures in 1979 and Closer in 1980, they redirected the trajectory of guitar music for sure. Their biggest track, Love Will Tear Us Apart, which we just covered a few weeks back, that climbed to number 42 on the US dance chart, so they never had a hit, which is fine. But that was the extent of their exposure in America at that time. But Joy Division's influence has little to do with the charts. This band didn't just play music. They designed atmosphere. They pioneered the cold industrial space-conscious sound, and their DNA is woven into almost every major alternative act of the last 40 years, from the stadium-sized sound of U2 to the industrial grit of Nine Inch Nails, and really the atmospheric gloom of The Cure. Joy Division is year 0 for everything cool and dark in the rock canon, for sure. All right, jumping to the Smiths. They became eligible for induction in 2008, and they've been nominated twice in 2015 and 2016, back-to-back, but they just keep getting passed over. And my own theory is because of Morrissey's politics. They don't like that. But that has nothing to do with the music that this 4-piece created in the 80s. If you look at the Smiths' trajectory, though, it's ridiculous. In just 5 years, the Smiths kicked out 4 perfect studio albums that set the standard for all of indie rock and indie pop or any serious artist thereafter. They've influenced so many people. The BBC once called them the band that inspired deeper devotion than any British group since the Beatles. And that's not hyperbole, that's straight up fact.
But heaven knows I'm miserable now. So our difference started now. You shut your mouth, how can you say? A jumped up country boy who never knew his place.
No band has an entire catalog where every record, including the compilations The World Won't Listen Louder Than Bombs and Half Full of Hollow, is flawless. Like I said, their influence is so pervasive, it's become the oxygen of independent music. Without them, you can't trace the lineage of Britpop at all. Oasis, Blur, Suede, or the 2000s indie revival of the Strokes, the Killers, Radiohead, and such. But the real story is the alchemy between Stephen Patrick Morrissey and Johnny Marr. Often cited as the 80s answer to Lennon and McCartney, they provided a radical alternative to the synth pop and hair metal dominating the airwaves. Their music was real. Johnny Marr rejected the bloated guitar solos of the 70s and instead creating a symphonic jangle pop style using intricate layers that made a single guitar sound like an orchestra. Meanwhile, Morrissey's lyrics, literary, sardonic, and unapologetically vulnerable, gave a voice to the marginalized and Britain's working class youth, and Blackfoot's working class youth. It reached as far as Blackfoot, Idaho, and everywhere else. I mean, on a personal note, the Smiths spoke to me in a way that no band ever has. Like I said, they're my favorite band of all time. Johnny Marr wrote dozens of the greatest guitar lines ever, easily as making toast. And Morrissey was the poet laureate of the second half of the 20th century. His words were a declaration of deliverance. Outcasts everywhere felt heard for the first time. I can't say enough about the Smiths. I mean, how soon is now? There is a light that never goes out, which just passed 1 billion streams. People are getting it. It's because their music you feel it. You feel it in your heart. It cuts through the bullshit and it just hits you in the deepest part of the recesses of your heart and your soul.
Keeps the inner voice from wandering.
I love the Smiths.
Sorry?
I said I love the Smiths.
And, thank God for the Smiths. So I'm going from a British band that cut to the heart to an American band that absolutely did the same thing that cut to the heart. This will be a controversial choice. At number 2, I've got the group who's been waiting the longest on the list of my inductee snubs. I'm going with the Carpenters. Now hear me out, all right? The sister-brother duo of Karen and Richard Carpenter released their debut album Offering in 1969. This means they've been eligible since 1994. 32-year wait. But you know what? Every rocker loves these guys. It's not even as a guilty pleasure either. The Carpenters are the real deal.
Rainy days and Mondays always get me down. I fell in love with you.
And if you're going to put in pop acts like Madonna and Janet Jackson and so forth, the Carpenters deserve to be in. I mean, for years they were unfairly dismissed by the rock establishment as too soft or too wholesome or whatever. Throughout their career, the Carpenters were savaged by critics that called them bland. But a closer look reveals a duo that was as musically radical as any of their contemporaries. Richard has long maintained that they were dismissed by the rock press because they represented mainstream America. And he famously said, and I love this, forget the music, they just didn't like the idea of us. Amen. Amen. Richard Carpenter is widely credited with inventing the power ballad. In 1972, he made the daring decision to insert a distorted fuzz guitar solo into the melancholy track Goodbye to Love. At the time, this was considered musical heresy by both soft rock and hard rock fans. However, this hybrid of sentimental melody and aggressive rock provided the blueprint for an entire genre that would dominate the 80s and 90s. And then there's Karen Carpenter, whose voice is the benchmark for vocal perfection. Let's be really clear there. Her deep 3-octave contralto possessed a clarity and emotional resonance that the greatest rock icons totally envy. Paul McCartney once called her the best female voice in the world.
Say goodbye.
And beyond her perfect vocals, Karen was a pioneer in rock as a professional drummer. Her technical proficiency behind the kit earned her the respect of her peers and future generations. I mean, when Rush's Neil Peart was asked what it felt like to be the best drummer in the world, he said, I don't know, you'd have to ask Karen Carpenter. And another funny one, John Bonham of Led Zeppelin was clearly agitated and annoyed that he came in second to Karen in Playboy's 1975 Best Drummer poll. And he was quoted to say, I'd like to have it publicized that I came in after Karen Carpenter in the Playboy drummer poll. And then he said, she couldn't last 10 minutes with a Zeppelin number. Love you, John. God rest your soul. But I would bet my life savings that she would have. She'd been fine. Beyond Karen's heartbreaking passing in 1983, the Carpenters have lived on in pop culture and influenced every generation. In the 90s, they underwent a major critical reassessment, led by bands like Sonic Youth, whose song Tunic, Song for Karen, made her an indie rock martyr. Artists from Sheryl Crow, the Cranberries came together to cover the Carpenters' catalog on one of the best tribute albums ever, 1994's If I Were a Carpenter. With over 100 million records sold, the Carpenters were the top-selling American act of the 70s. A lot of people don't realize that. Yeah. If you put pop stars like Madonna and George Michael in, like I said, you have to put in the greatest pop group of the 70s.
Without ever knowing what to say. Rainy days, Mondays, always good.
All right, it's time for the number one pick. Have you guessed it yet? It was an easy one. The greatest debut album of all time. Talking about Boston. Let me say this as clearly as possible. Boston's exclusion from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the most egregious oversight in the institution's history this side of Paul Rodgers and Rush. They've never even been nominated, not even once. Goes to show you how out of touch the gatekeepers in Cleveland really are. In fact, Rick Beato and I talked about this recently, and more on that in a second. Boston released their perfect an iconic self-titled debut album on August 25th, 1976. It means they've been eligible since 2001, 25 years ago. When Boston's self-titled debut was released in 76, it exploded, and it saved rock from a total disco takeover. It became the fastest-selling debut album in U.S. history, certifying 17 times platinum, until Guns N' Roses later claimed the crown with Appetite for Destruction. Boston's debut with every one of its 8 tracks, including More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, and Foreplay Long Time, and Hitch a Ride, remains so prolific that the record is effectively a greatest hits album. You hear this stuff on classic rock radio all the time. It's a fixture even 50 years later. From there, Boston released 2 more iconic LPs, making for what could be argued as one of the best 3-album runs in history. Don't Look Back dropped in 78, and then after a long writing and recording process, Third Stage was released in 1986. Because of a lawsuit, it took them 8 years as fans to wait for it, and the musical landscape had completely changed, and it still went to number 1. Tom Scholz. Let's talk about him for a second. Tom Scholz, the band's leader, was an MIT-trained sonic sorcerer. He didn't record the debut in a high-end Los Angeles studio with a bunch of people around. He recorded almost entirely in a basement, using equipment he built or modified himself. Scholz's inventions like the Rockman headphone amp and the Power Soak revolutionized guitar technology forever. Boston reinvented the wall of sound for the 70s, layering meticulously harmonized guitars that were perfect to the ears. Scholz consistently created a cinematic experience that was both bone-crunching but also melodic. This he paired with the stratospheric 4-octave range of one Brad Delp, and it was mind-blowing and still is. And although Steve Perry is my favorite vocalist of all time, who I consider to be the greatest rock vocalist ever, if you dial it down to one song, I gotta go with Brad Delp because of what he did on More Than a Feeling. Man, I mean, think about it. Arguably the 2 greatest pure singers, male and female, of the last 60 years, Brad Delp and Karen Carpenter, they're not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, music's highest honor. Tom Scholz was essentially the Brian Wilson of the 70s. I mean, Boston's AOR template provided the foundation for every stadium-filling band that followed, from Journey to Def Leppard and beyond. They were the trailblazers who saved rock from disco. They saved it from fading into the background in the late 70s when disco took over. The band's influence, it even reached the 90s grunge revolution. I mean, Kurt Cobain famously acknowledged that the riff for Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit was a nod to More Than a Feeling. With over 75 million records sold and a legacy of technical brilliance, brilliance that changed how music is recorded and heard, Boston is one of the key architects of the modern rock era. Of course, Tom Scholz has said he's not surprised the band isn't in the Rock Hall. They were never darlings of the music press or the critics, but that's exactly where they should be in. They are the people's band. In my recent video with Rick Beato, we both came to the same conclusion that we need to do something about this insanity. Here's what we said.
I love Hitch a Ride, Boston.
Days night in New York City, smoke like
Oh, Rick, that's my favorite Boston song.
Love that song. I can listen to that forever.
It's so good. The guitar solos.
Everything. The guitar solo, the verse melody, it's amazing.
Brad Delp, his voice is so melancholy on that song.
Yeah.
But then he rises right up, right after you hear that melancholy, he goes right up and he's back to, Brad Delp to punch you in the face with that great vocal. But I agree. Such an incredible song. How is Boston not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I have no idea. Maybe we need to start a movement here.
We absolutely should. I like that blows my mind. And when they say, well, they only have one big album, that's not true. They had 3 big albums.
That's right. They did.
And they had as many big albums as Guns N' Roses had.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I agree.
All right, here's our call to action. My call to action to you. Let's get Boston in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We have the power to do it. There's a link to a petition that we've created at change.org. Click on the link right up here or down below. Go and sign it and show your support for Boston. Let's get this done. It's time. Make sure to leave us a comment below about what you think are the biggest snubs, and make sure to sign that petition. We got to get Boston in. I think it's really important to honor them, their legacy, their music, and these other bands too. Who else? Let's have a great discussion below about this. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.